I was listening to you and Ali talking about the new alliance between Turkey and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and wondering if this meant that, say, Pakistan got involved in a war, then that would drag in NATO because Turkey is a NATO member. And now I can finally say, no, it wouldn't. The North Atlantic Treaty is very specific. It's about defending the sovereign territory of member states in North America, Europe, the Asian part of Turkey, and any islands or archipelagos belonging to member states north of the Tropic of Cancer, which is a parallel. And for example, that latter requirement meant that when Argentina invaded the Falklands, which are British sovereign territory, that was not a NATO issue because it's outside of the geographical area that's covered by NATO. If Turkey decided to go off to war against India because of Pakistan or something, that would be Turkey's business and have nothing to do with NATO. NATO would only come into the picture if somebody attacked Turkey itself.
Okay, so a question. If, let's say, for example, the Islamic Republic attacks Saudi Arabia, okay? And then because of the, so guys, for people who don't have context, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey just had a security agreement that an attack on one is an attack on all, and they should respond. So we were wondering that given that Turkey is in NATO and they have a similar agreement over there, does that not drag the entirety of NATO to a war like that? And Cora is saying no, because NATO is about defending the areas that you mentioned, right? So, but what about this? So Saudi Arabia attacks, no, the Islamic Republic attacks Saudi Arabia, and Turkey now gets involved because of the security pact that they have with Saudi Arabia. And then things escalate, and the Islamic Republic attacks Turkey. Isn't Turkey in those areas that NATO should respond to, which isn't the entirety of Turkey? If the Islamic Republic responds to this attack in Turkey's land, so because you're saying if Turkey goes and does something in India, that doesn't mean NATO gets involved. But if India responds in Turkey, then doesn't get NATO get involved? Again, this is hypothetical. No, I'm not saying this will happen. But I think let's go with the more realistic example that I gave. If the Islamic Republic attacks Turkey in their mainland, doesn't that get NATO involved in that case?
Mm, I'm not sure. I'm not the most expert person you could ask on this, but I'm thinking that if Turkey is already at war with another country that then attacks them because of that war, that I would think would at least be a kind of a gray area that could give some wiggle room for NATO countries to get out of it.
Hmm. So that's what
But I'm
we're
not
talking
sure.
about. We weren't
Yeah,
talking
okay.
about Turkey going out and attacking the Islamic Republic. I wasn't suggesting that that will drag NATO. We were wondering if, because of that, if the Islamic Republic then responds in Turkey, then would that drag NATO? So that's the question. We should look into that.
But that would be weird though, because the purpose of NATO is to defend its members if they are aggressed upon. That's the NATO was designed in the first place in order to protect member countries near the Warsaw Pact from attacks by Soviet tanks rolling in.
So
So
you're
it's
saying NATO would not get involved because this would not be an act of defense. This would be like they started it. So they will see the aggressor to be Turkey. And because Turkey was the aggressor, NATO would be, we don't have anything to do with that. We only get involved if they started it, the other side started it.
I'm getting out on thin ice here, and I have to say I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh, interesting topic, though. That's what we have to investigate to figure out.
So first to respond is Jose.
Mr. Jorgensen, no, I'll use your last name. You are correct. It would take India attacking Turkey. Turkey attacking in response of an attack by, let's say, the IRGC on Saudi will not trigger NATO. Saudi is not a member of the NATO alliance. The only problem that I see Turkey would have if they think NATO is going to go in, if they were attacked first by anybody, including overshot of the missiles from Iran, is that the United States will say no. Why? Turkey said no. Just think of that. Turkey was one of the countries that pretty much said no. Yes, it was Spain that definitely put the kibosh on it. And then no overflights by Italy, France, Germany, Spain, England. Yes, that happened too. Okay. But I believe Turkey also opened their mouth and said something, which would definitely put a 2x4, because it won't be just the Americans that would say that to them. The Polish and the Hungarians would look to make good with the Americans and prove that they're an American ally, and they would also vote no. So it's a very interesting point, but it also explains how entangling that particular alliance is. To me, the more dangerous part of that alliance is the fact that now we have Pakistan in a real mutual defense treaty with not only a weak and powerless Saudi, but with the beast of the Middle East that isn't Israel, the Turks. That's the scary part. Hopefully, nothing ever happens, but then that's going to depend on the Iranians, and if the IRGC, excuse me, Harmon, the IRGC attacks Saudi, and how well the other two countries decide they're going to assist in their allegiance. Okay, because I don't think Pakistan has the guts. That's why Turkey had to be signed. And I think Turkey needs to worry about a lot of things, including, I think the United States would welcome them, but depending upon what they want to do. If they would come in and declare that they're joining the forces led by the United States and Israel, they'll never say Israel, for one thing, okay? But if they do that, then we got a different story talking. But then we're not talking the NATO alliance. If that busts your bubble there, but you are correct about what the NATO alliance is and what it does. And basically, Armin, I'll make it easier for you. The Mediterranean North. That's why Crete's involved. That's why Sicily's technically involved. Oh, and I want to correct you. There is another target that the missiles from Iran can hit. If they can make it all the way across to the Indian Ocean, they can also hit the Bosphorus. The one in Turkey where the Russian ships come out of, that would be interesting. Just think about it.
Adding to that, they could theoretically have their missiles hit London, theoretically. But yeah, hitting the Bosphorus would definitely be a big sign. Other than that, Jose said most of everything I was going to say. So yeah.
I did want to read. So Carl Llewellyn is at work, and so he can't do this. So he said, he's at work, but the entangling alliances being described is dangerous. That sort of thing started World War I.
True.
So there are no more replies. So you have a super chat?
Yes, it's about the same topic. Zipgun with a super chat. Thank you so much, Zipgun, saying very concerned about Turkey, Saudi, Pakistan alliance, especially given what Pakistan defense minister said. Yep, it is concerning, especially because this is not just against the Islamic Republic, it's also against Israel. And this alliance is a result of the Palestinian cause, which, among many reasons, you could see how this cause has caused so many problems. Because without the Palestinian cause, the Saudis would have been within the Abrahamic Accord by now, instead of going with this. But again, I don't want to open that can of worms right now because I want to let other people speak, but I could talk about that for hours. Thank you, Sipkan. Thank you so much for the super chat. You're completely correct. My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics. The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.